Everybody, thanks for joining us today. We have some people still joining us here, so we're going to give it about a minute or so before we kick off the webinar. So just hang tight. We'll be with you in 1 second. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. My name is Russ Clark. I'm the Business Development Manager at BTRG, and we're super excited for today's presentation. The buzz around this topic and webinar has been great. We've seen over 500 people register in the last 2 weeks alone. Today's presentation will be given by two of BTRG's most senior PeopleSoft experts, Sarafel Ballou, who is our Director of Technology, and Janet Martin, who is one of our Senior Solution Architects. Due to BTRG's close relationship with the Oracle product team, our team, including Sarafel and Janet, were invited out to their headquarters a few months back to get hands-on training with PeopleTools 8.55 prior to its release, and they have some great insight into how it will impact PeopleSoft customers. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. All attendees are in listen-only mode. If you wish to ask a question, please use the question box located in the control panel, and we're also going to provide a couple email addresses that you can send emails to along the way. Today's webinar will be recorded, and we'll be distributing a replay link next week. So without any further delays, I'm going to hand things off to Janet and Sarafel. Take it away, guys.
Thanks, Russ. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Sarafel Ballou. I'm the Director of Technology here at BTRG. I've been working with PeopleSoft for over 16 years, both on the development and system administration side of things. I'm looking forward to going through PeopleTools 8.55 with everyone this afternoon, and my partner in crime.
Hi, my name's Janet Martin. I'm BTRG's Solutions Architect. My focus is mostly HCM, but today I want to make sure that you guys understand the demonstrations we'll be giving are both, they're related to both. They could be used in finance or HCM, so the functionality is the same. And I apologize in advance for only showing HCM demonstrations, but hopefully you'll be able to see how the new features will impact our business users. During the broadcast today, if you have questions, if they're functional related, please go ahead and address them to Ask Janet at btrgroup.com. If they're technical related, then please feel free to use the Ask Sarafel at btrgroup.com email, or put those questions in the question box at the side of your webinar. And we'll get back to you guys with questions, with answers to those questions as soon as possible.
Thanks, Janet. So our agenda this afternoon will kick off with a brief overview of PeopleTools 8.55. So we'll touch upon the major enhancements and features and capabilities that have been introduced with 8.55. And then we'll get into a deep dive around some of the pretty impactful features from an 8.55 standpoint: fluid enhancement, Simplified Analytics. We'll have a short demo both on fluid enhancements and Simplified Analytics. And then we'll get into the technical side of the cloud architecture, update manager, and then there's other impacts around development and server administration that we'll review as well. So we'll get started with the high-level overview. So PeopleTools 8.55, obviously, the buzz is around mostly on the user experience and the cloud architecture. So we'll cover that. We'll have some demos around the features of the fluid enhancements, and then from a cloud architecture, we'll review some of the tools that have been available because of the architecture. There's some life cycle management enhancements as well. And then we'll get into some system administration development features, and last but not least, some of the search capabilities that have been available on 8.55. So user experience, fluid. So the fluid enhancements have been coming since PeopleTools 8.54. So folks that have PeopleTools 8.54 know that fluid is something that's available for them. Oracle has built upon that enhancements and now is rolling out the Fluid Dashboard, which is pretty similar to the classic dashboard, but it's within the Fluid team. We also have activity guides within the Fluid team as well. And tiles are pretty big within 855. They've been pretty advancements around the wizard. The wizard is actually new within 855. And tiles are also interactive, and they can display external content, and there's other things we can do with the sizing as well that we'll get into later on within the presentation. From a reporting and analytics perspective, the Simplified Analytics will show a few one demo, but mainly the analytics piece is we used to have the pivot grids and the dashboards and so forth that supported analytics, but now what 855 has done is has tied it down to the normal flow of work, meaning users that are transacting within the application are now able to take advantage of these analytics. And like I mentioned, we'll do a few demo around that. Pivot grids, a few advancements around pivot grids. Main one, we can now use composite queries. We can now save as pivot grids, which are pretty key for most of our clients. BI Publisher, a lot of advancements on BI Publisher. To point out a few, we can now change data sources after we've created BI Publishers. Email distribution can be sent after the BI Publisher has been sent to non-PeopleSoft external users. And external attachments can also be attached to BI Publisher reports. Some enhancements around Envision, the PeopleSoft API for Excel, and then the Implosion feature now supports multiple chart fields. The pretty big one around reporting and analytics for 855 is crystals. Crystals are no longer supported with 855. So as most of you will know, especially the ones that are on 9.2, all of the delivered crystal reports were migrated to XML reports. But if you had custom reports, you were able to run them with 853 and 854. That no longer is supported with crystals, so that's something that you want to take advantage, but consider as you move to 855. The cloud architecture is another pretty major feature that has been deployed with 855. So from a cloud architecture perspective, it's not so much that PeopleSoft can now be supported on Oracle's public cloud, though that's certainly a big announcement. But the cloud architecture now has tools that can deploy PeopleSoft pretty rapidly and can support PeopleSoft not just on Oracle's public cloud, but other cloud providers, your internal private cloud. But there are also tools that we'll review later that can help you manage and configure your PeopleSoft environments, even if you're on-premise. And from an Oracle public cloud perspective, all your hardware doesn't have to be supported on the cloud. So if you say, your Pom images that you don't want to deal with, every image comes out, maybe that's something that you want to host on the cloud. Or there's a lower environment or a training environment that you want to publish on the cloud. So very flexible as far as the management and migration between the environments on the cloud and what's on the premise is pretty seamless. There are tools available to manage that. And then last but not least, around the cloud, this does not make PeopleSoft a SaaS solution. So what this means is the environment, it's still supported on a public cloud, but it's not multi-tenant. You're not sharing the PeopleSoft environment. It's still your own environment. So you're still taking advantage of PeopleSoft's strength as far as tailoring the application to your specific business needs, even from a customization perspective. Another pretty big announcement for as part of the cloud architecture, the Pom piece, especially the images, no longer require physical servers. So you are now able to put any images on virtual servers using DPKs, which I'm going to be talking about now. So DPKs, I'm sure if you've heard about 855, this is one of the main tools that have been released with 855 in order to be able to deploy the PeopleSoft architecture. DPKs consist of it's run in the background by Puppet Lab, which is an open source automated automated deployment product. So DPKs, since starting with 8.55, are now used to roll out your application server, your web binaries, your process schedulers, and even the PeopleTools client. And then we're still taking advantage of the ACM, the Automated Configuration Manager, which was released in 8.54, and that's still helpful. Is also taking care of the configuration stat, which is from the PIA integration broker. Any configuration from a PIA architecture perspective will handle ACM. So DPK with the conjunction of Puppet and ACM is now able to install, configure, and manage the entire installation configuration process. And we'll get into some of the details at a later slide. Pretty significant enhancements around lifecycle management tools. The main one around the PeopleSoft Admin Manager. Now we have a Pom Dashboard that gives us an analytic feature around images and how that correlates to your environment, your customizations, and there's also improved selection process. And when you create your change packages, we'll have some more details for you guys in later slides as well. Change Assistant has been dramatically changed in how it's maintained, how you can save and import your configurations. Test framework, a few advancements there. One of the highlights is you can now use a custom sign-in pages, especially for folks that have single sign-on turned on. We require the clients to build another sign-on page so test framework can log on and be able to do the test automation. And now that's no longer required. Application data sets, a lot more improvements, and most of these can be found in the PeopleTools 8.55 release notes. But one I wanted to highlight from the data set perspective was the performance, especially when we're applying images. For developers and sysadmins, 8.55 is loaded with features and enhancements. For the server admin, we can now configure push notification on mobile devices. Push notifications were delivered in 8.54 for desktops, and now we can support mobile devices as well. There's a log correlation feature which enables PS admins to be able to correlate WebLogic logs and application server logs. A lot of PS admin enhancements, which we'll get into on later slides. And then last but not least, on the server admin side, Oracle 12c in memory feature is supported. Not to confuse with PeopleSoft in memory. The Oracle 12c in memory is a database feature that you can turn on a table or a field. PeopleSoft can now take advantage of that, and we've seen it greatly improve performance on some of our clients. Security, as Oracle has done in other PeopleTools releases since the 8.53, we're moving forward with the default initiative. One of the major points, the Access ID and Connect ID are now extended, no longer 8 characters. The secure hash algorithm 2 is supported with also the 4096 key size. Development features for the developers, the application designer it looks different. There's additional search filters and a lot of shortcuts, which I'll get into later as well. Event mapping is a pretty significant feature that can potentially cut a huge percentage of your customizations. We have demos, and we'll have more information for you on some of the other sections this afternoon as well. People code, their new classes, methods, properties, and functions that have been released through 8.55. That you guys can review the overview and on the 8.55 documentation to be able to get to those documentation or people books. I've already talked about push notifications, and the navigation bar will also have a demo for you guys. Last but not least, the search capability. So what Oracle has announced that it plans to replace the SCS sometimes in 2016 with Elasticsearch. So we expect that will be done through a PeopleTools patch. We don't know exactly when, but it will happen sometime this year. But at the same time, as we're waiting for Elasticsearch, because we have had a few issues with SCS, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to it, there have been advancements with SCS in 8.55, and the main one is the custom namespace. So that allows cloned environments. So as you're refreshing your production environments to test and development, you're able now to deploy your indexes to the cloned environments and the original environments. This allows you to be able to share the same indices with multiple environments. This will reduce the amount of SCS databases that you require moving forward. And if you choose to stay with SCS once Elasticsearch, Oracle hasn't necessarily given us a direction whether SCS will stay once Elasticsearch has been released, whether it will be an option or if everyone would have to move to Elastic. So that was a pretty significant announcement for 8.55. Now we'll get into a deep dive on some of the enhancements on 8.55. The first being the fluid enhancements. I'll cover a few things on the fluid, and Janet will show us a few demo around fluid and what has been done to it on 8.55. So the major thing with 8.55 is Fluid UI is turned on by default. In 8.54, you had access to Fluid, but you can disable it. So if you see the screenshots here, 8.54, within the web profile configuration, you can disable the Fluid. 8.55, Fluid is here to stay. You can't turn it off. Even some of the classic pages that are still available, they're wrapped around the Fluid frame. This can be difficult for some of the power users from a navigation standpoint and so forth. So I think admins and business analysts have to adapt to creating and taking advantage of some of the Fluid dashboards to be able to adapt to Fluid. Even majority of your pages are classic. Tiles, as I mentioned before, there have been pretty significant advancements on tiles. We have Tile Wizard now. Tiles are interactive, so any data you can directly interact within the tile. External content, so if you want to bring in a map, Google within a tile, that's also supported. And the sizes are pretty flexible now within 8.55, so that you can change them. A user can change them, an admin can change them. They can be set to automatically resize based on your devices, or they can also be set to resize manually. Now, Jana will take us through some of the other Fluid enhancements, starting with nav bars.
Thanks, Rafael. So the first thing we want to talk about is the changes to the navigation bar. So typically, what you'll see with 8.55 is that the majority of the changes were for the small form factor. So that's something like your iPhone or mobile device. If we go to the next slide, we'll see that if you look at 8.54 image 15 from a Fluid home perspective and a 8.55 image 16, there's no change or difference that you see immediately from the home page. But if you are looking at it on the next slide in the classic form, you can see here you still have an 8.54, the breadcrumbs at the top. You also have a home and a sign out button. In 8.55, those areas are no longer available. So by default, like Rafael said, even the classic pages are wrapped with the Fluid navigation bar. The home icon is, of course, there with the home, and then the sign out is under the actions section. So we'll look at those in the next slide. You'll see the differences. If you hit the actions, you'll see add to home page, you'll see add to your nav bar, and you'll see the sign out there at the bottom. So that's what the changes in the typical home page navigation bar look like on the desktop. Also to the right of that, you'll see when you click on the nav bar, it will first pop out with the tiles that you see there. And then if you click on the navigator, you'll actually get another slide in from the right, which shows you the actual menu where you can navigate to the particular transaction or page that you're looking for. So if we go to a demonstration of this on my iPhone, you can see there, this is Janet's iPhone. We're just going to go ahead and log in and do a little navigating around on the small form factor or the mobile device. So I go ahead and start my iPhone, and I'm logged in. The first home page is Manager Self-Service, and I'm going to click on the nav bar. So you can see it slide in from the right. If I click on the navigator, it then replaces the whole screen with the actual menu. So it's a little different than you'd see it on the desktop. If I go back to the nav bar, I can also go to the classic home from here. As you can see, any of the classic pages, as you've known in the past, have been very hard to see on a mobile device. Very small. Even the navigator, as it pulls in there, the nav bar pulls in, very small. So I went back to the actual fluid mode, and that's what we see in the nice big large tiles that are able to be fully displayed on the iPhone. If I go ahead and actually navigate by clicking on the Promote Employee, it takes me to the actual transaction. I can go ahead and click on an individual to give a promotion to. I can scroll up and down and so forth. So very easy to navigate on the iPhone, and hopefully that shows the bit of a difference that they've done with the navigation for the small form factor. The next thing I'd like to take you guys through is Simplified Analytics. Really nice feature in 8.55. It definitely allows end users to create their own analytics now. It is very easy. It's a simple process. We're going to walk through a demonstration so you can see that. But also administrators are able to create and push out analytics to other users within the system. So you can either do it yourself as a user if given the appropriate access, or an administrator can create these very easily and put them on individuals' My Analytics pages so that they can run these. So the first thing we're going to do is show this on the iPhone, just running an analytic. Okay. So again, I'm back on my iPhone, and I'm back at my Manager Self-Service. I'm going to go to my team and actually look at the individuals in my group, and I'm going to take Diane Palmer and actually do a promotion using the related action green arrow there. I'm going to promote her. I'm only going to do a salary change, so that is my questionnaire. Very easy to click on the buttons. Once I get to the page here, I'm going to change her job title. I'm going to change it to the, let's say, Administrator Customer Service, and I'll say Next. And it's going to show me where she is today and allow me to change her information. So current and new information is shown. I'm wondering how she did on her performance review, though. So I'm going to go to my analytics by sliding in the tile from the right, and I'm going to run the performance analytics. So this one was already put out there for me. I'm not creating it. I'm just running it, what was delivered to me by another, let's say, an administrator who created this analytic for me. And again, it's embedded right in the workflow, and it runs the analytic on my phone. I can look at the information and decide where I want to give the increase for Diane. You can see she's not even showing up there. So I'm going to close that analytic and go back to my transaction. So what I'm going to try to do here is bring her up to the minimum for the salary grade, which is $33,000. So I'm going to put in a new amount of $33,000. It's going to calculate the change amount in the salary increase that we're giving. And I'm going to scroll down and make sure the information looks right when I look at it in the final mode here before I review and submit it. I also want to put in, let's say, a comment to my manager and ask her to please approve this. I know it's a big change, but I really would like to move Diane to this new, or give her this promotion. Let's spell that correctly. There we go. Please approve. And then I can submit it right from my phone. Again, it goes through the normal workflow. That's all tied in. It's been very easy for me to just click on the buttons and move around on my phone. It's very easy to see. It's large. And now I get the transaction that's been successfully submitted. I can look to see who it was routed to for approvals. This is our approval workflow engine. It's going to go to Gene Parsons. So I'm happy with what I've done, and I'm back to my team, and I'm going to close out my phone and finish. So that is how easy it is right now to run an analytic that was created for you as a user. So the next thing I want to show you is how easy it was for us to create that as a brand new one. So again, I'm going to start back at my team, and now I'm in the role of a user who wants to create their own analytic. So I'm going to use Susan this time and just navigate back to the same spot I was before for promoting the employee. I'm going to do a salary change, but wait a minute, I want to look at the analytics. The only one I have is for performance, but I want to look at it and create another one. So I'm going to click the plus sign to do Add Analytic. I'm going to give it a name, so this is just my test for the demo analytic. I want a chart, and I also want a simple table so I can see the data in a table view. I'm going to click Next and pick the fields that I want to include in my analytic report. Employee ID, performance rating, currency, that looks good, and I'm going to click Next. Again, a three-step easy process, and here's my analytic being created. There's my chart, and if I scroll down to the bottom, I can see my simple table with all the information included that I've asked for, the fields. What I'm really missing, though, is I want their name somewhere. So I'm going to go to the facets on the left, grab the employee name, and actually just drag it into the row. And this is going to update my analytic right online here, very quick and easy, and it's going to include the employees' names as part of the rows. And if I don't like it as a line graph, I'm going to change it to a bar graph so I can see where they all fall within the in the salary range. So again, I'm going to save this because I like the way it looks right now. Again, just a quick and easy example. It says yes, it was saved. I'm going to add it to my home page as well because I don't want to have to come back to here to actually see it. I'm going to put it on my home page, so it's just for me. But because I'm an administrator also, I have the ability to actually publish this analytic out to other users. So I can click here and say publish my analytics for other users, or publish this to a tile repository so they can include it and add it to their home pages if they'd like to. So we're going to cancel that, but go ahead and make sure I've saved my analytic. It looks good. And then I can close out of the wizard that created the analytic for me. And now if I go back to my home page, I'm going to cancel the promotion transaction. And now I'm going to head back to my home page, which now has the analytic that we just created on the home page. If I look at the top where the home pages are, now I have manager, employee, and also my home page. So you can see the ones that are available, and now I actually have my analytic on my home page. So very easy to create these. In the future, I hope to create a demo for you guys to make available on how you actually set this analytic up to make sure that it's available to end users. So there is some configuration to make it a related action or related content. And we'll do that in the future if those of you are interested in how to set this up. It wasn't very hard, and I think it's a great improvement. Our users are going to actually love this quite a bit. So now we're going to turn it back over to Surafel. He's going to talk about the PeopleSoft Cloud architecture.
Thanks, Janet. So, as you can see from a user experience perspective, the tool has certainly introduced a lot more enhancements, but there are even bigger changes on the back end. Before I start getting into the cloud architecture on Pom, just want to give everyone a perspective, and I realize some may have some business folks, some functional resources on the call. The theme of the changes from an 8.55 perspective was really to make the environment and architecture to easily adapt to the selective adoption process that Oracle has started the journey with 9.2 and 8.53 features. So as I go through a lot of these enhancements, as you will see, the way we deploy the environment, the way we maintain it, the way we apply patches and updates and manage our customizations have been greatly enhanced. And that's because Oracle wants its customers to adapt more easily to the changes that will be introduced more frequently. So from, like I mentioned earlier, the big hitter from a cloud architecture perspective are the deployment packages, the DPKs, which allows you to deploy the PeopleSoft environment pretty fast without the current steps of going through downloading each each applications, whether it's Java, Tuxedo, WebLogic, application, PeopleTools. So DPK manages the download, the installation, and the configuration of all the PeopleSoft architecture components. Not necessarily from just an installation and configuration perspective, but it also manages the PeopleSoft update image. You can do a PeopleTools patch and also be able to take care of a PeopleTools upgrade as well. Currently, DPKs are supported on the Linux and Microsoft Windows, but you have to be on an Oracle database. Oracle has promised that they will soon be available on SQL Server and DB2, whether in ZOS or Linux servers. So the old way of configuring and installing PeopleSoft is still available. You can go to eDelivery and still be able to download Java, Tuxedo, WebLogic, and the application binaries. But obviously, the recommendation from Oracle is to start adapting to DPKs because that will be the way of the future. So at some point, the old way of installation and configuration of PeopleSoft will go away. So this is the current process. If you're not on 8.55, this is what you have to go through to install and configure an environment. You obviously have to go download a component. Yeah, you have to get your environment and hardware ready. You install each of the components separately. You configure each of the components separately, whether it's a process scheduler, app server, the web tier, the database. So there are a lot of iterations, and you have to go through this process for every environment. What DPK allows you to do is significantly reduce those steps. So you download as a whole, you download everything in one, you configure everything in one, and deploy it as one. And the next time you have to do it, the configurations are saved. You're able to modify the configuration. So if you want to change your ports, if you want to change your JSL port, anything else that we do today, you can still do it by using the PeopleSoft module, and still be able to reduce a lot of the steps that we highlighted in the earlier slide. So there's two options to deploy a PeopleSoft image, and what this boils down to is what I initially announced is that the images that are delivered with PeopleSoft are no longer coming with VirtualBox. So Oracle VirtualBox is still supported. So if you want the images to be downloaded as VirtualBox, DPK still supports it. But what I think is significant is that with the help of the Bootstrap DPK, PeopleSoft can now be deployed whether you're on a virtual or physical machine. So as long as you're on Microsoft or Linux, you can deploy PeopleSoft whether you're running VMware, Hyper-V, or any other virtual machine. So that's pretty significant, and I think has caused a lot of headaches for most of our IT folks once they were on 9.2 and 8.53. So there's three kinds of duplicates that you can download. The main one is obviously the Pom. So the Pom duplicate comes with not just the application binaries, but also the database. So once you deploy a Pom duplicate, you have a fully functioning environment, including a database. But you also have an option to get a tool server DPK. So if you want to just configure your app servers, process schedulers, and so forth, you have the tool server DPK. Lastly, you can also get a DPK just to install your tools client. So if you want your app designer, data mover, and so forth, there's a separate DPK for that. Here's some of the installation options that I wanted to quickly review for my techies that are involved here. So from installation option, DPK allows you, once you download the DPK, you can say, okay, even though the DPK has the POM and everything within it, I only want a mid-tier out of that DPK, or I just want to create the database, or you can go with a full-tier environment as well. And DPK also allows you to clean up your existing deployed environment, so you don't have to go chase down folders and files. If you wanted to clean up an environment, say, you know, image 15, image 16 is available, you had image 15, you want to get rid of image 15, 16. The cleanup process itself is also automated within DPK. There have been also pretty significant features and enhancements with Pom. The major one being is the introduction of the Update Manager dashboard, which lets you manage your Pom application, so what you've applied versus what's coming out. You have a dashboard now, and you need to go through a configuration, obviously, to set up your target databases and so forth. But once it's set up, it works for subsequent images. So it's not that you have to go through the configuration for every image. And it gives you an analytic view of what you've applied, what's coming, and more importantly, and I'll have some screenshot, you can also create a customization repository. So if you have customizations, and you know most of us do, we are able to correlate what you've customized from an object perspective to what's being released. So image 16 is out, you get your Pom database up and running, go to your dashboard, and be able to see how that Pom image impacts you. So a lot of the analysis and the compare process that we're accustomed to doing with 9285 through 854, this dashboard truly answers that. So as I mentioned, the Pom dashboard allows you to do, okay, what's the bug by my target database, or what's my bug status by tag or by product or by image. We see a lot of our customers doing the bug status by product, so that's the percentage of updates applied to all the products related to updates available. So how is my specific product doing compared to other products? So you know, if you're running HCM and you have HR and payroll and benefits, you can see from a product perspective how all your products are doing. But more importantly, the bug status by image. So that's the total percentage of fixes applied relative to the fixes that were available. So from a selective adoption perspective, what we want and what we are recommending customers is, yeah, you can be selective, but you also have to get to a point where at least once a year, let's get through a full image application. So this kind of gives you a status, how you're tracking, right? So within a year, if you're being selective, which we certainly recommend you to do, it sort of gives you an overview of, okay, here's a percentage of what I've applied versus what's available. So if you see that percent going down, then you start thinking about, okay, well, I got to get to a point where I got to keep up with what's being available, what's being released. Here's a customization repository that I mentioned earlier. You will go in and configure, and there's tools in there that allow you to identify objects that you've touched based on last upper ID and so forth. But once you configure this, you pretty much set up from a dashboard perspective. So an image comes out, you automatically can go in and see, hey, this image impacts, or this feature or this bug impacts these customizations that I've made. So you know, without doing the compare report analysis and so forth, that what that image is going to, how that image is going to impact you, the implementation process and the testing process that you have to go through to apply that image. The selection process when you create your change package has greatly been improved as well. So in the past, when we search for our features or bugs, once we come up with a search criteria, then we needed to create a change package based on that search criteria. Now we can create a change package for multiple searches. So we can go through an iterative process where you can do multiple searches and then create your change package instead of just once. Users can also now do direct searches. So you can search by not necessarily just the bug ID or the feature ID, but actually search by word of, hey, I want the TNL auto enrollment feature directly from the Pom. And I've mentioned that as far as the customization impact, but before you even download, before you consider anything, just from the search page, the customization impact is out there for you. So as long as you imported the objects, once you search and identify what you want to apply, that customization impact will be done within that search page. So that's pretty significant to cut the amount of time you have to do to go through the compare analysis and say, do I apply this image or not? Another significant feature, especially for folks that haven't upgraded to 9.2. So for everyone that has upgraded pre-8.55, we went to Oracle support to download an upgrade template. And these upgrade templates came with a specific image number, but they weren't released by every image. So what we had to do during the upgrade is we'll use that template to upgrade and then go through some type of process to get up to the latest image. So it just complicated the upgrade process, where now with the release of 8.55 and Change Assistant and Pom, we were able to create our own upgrade template based on the image that we want. So you go through the DPK, you can create your Pom image, pull up Change Assistant, you see the screenshot there, you take the option to create your upgrade task. Doesn't require you to download anything. You download that template. You can create a template for an initial pass. You can create a template for a move to production. So this is pretty significant, especially for folks that are considering upgrading to 9.2. That it simplifies the upgrade process. There are also a few changes to system enhancements. I've already talked about the fact that we can create upgrade templates. We can now install multiple instances of Change Assistant, and then the more of the options. What this annoys most of our PeopleSoft administrators. You go through a Change Assistant configuration for an image, you apply it, and then another image comes out, and you have to go through redo that configuration because really there's no way to save that configuration and import it to the next image. Now you can. The UI for Change Assistant has been greatly enhanced. I certainly have played around with it a few and just I like what I see from Change Assistant. Here's a few examples of being able to export, import Change Assistant settings. You can load your customer data. So really very flexible. Again, it's the team is reducing the time that you have to go through to be able to apply these images, both from a user adoption perspective, but also from an administration and development perspective. There have been other significant features as well that we'll highlight, starting with developer impacts. Event mapping is one of my favorite features for 8.55, and I will actually do a demo showing you, and like I mentioned earlier, it has the potential to greatly reduce the number of customizations, and this is something that we'll be working with clients as they upgrade to 8.55, as they upgrade to 9.2, to review customizations to see if we can take advantage of this feature to get rid of a lot of the customizations that you have in-house. Application Designer has been enhanced. The UI has been enhanced. There's new search filters, and I'll show you some of those within a screenshot. And then we have a new log analyzer that's able to review App Engine and people code trace files in a UI view versus actually reviewing it in a text editor. So, like I mentioned, event mappings, they give you the ability to call people code programs from a delivered component without customizing the component. So you still have to create a bolt-on object, but it doesn't let you modify that delivered component. And this is what I will show you in the next demo here. So I'm gonna choose a delivered page just to make sure that it hasn't been touched before we actually go through the process of creating an event map. So my system profile, I'm loading it here. It's delivered. We haven't touched it. So let's go through the process of creating the event mapping. So I'll go through App Designer. I'm going to create an app package. Save it. Again, this is custom object that I'm creating. I'm not touching any delivered object at this point. I'm going to create an application class for the app package that I just created. And then I have a simple people code that I just want to test with. It's just a message that I want to be able to show when I get to the page. Again, this is all within a bolt-on object. So that's saved. Now I'm going to come back, and now I'm going to go to PeopleTools portal and define my related content. And this is the navigation piece to tie your bolt-on code to a delivered component. It's configuration, and then it ties it. So as you're processing that component pre or post, you can execute your bolt-on code. So I'm creating a related content service here, so I'll call it a BTRG event map. And you can see you can associate it with a few like security and query, but I'm going to use an application class. Attach the app package that I just created. And I'll save the related content service. Well, forgot to put the name in, so I'll go ahead and put the name. Now, once I create the content service, this is where I'm going to relate the content service to the component or the page that the delivered page. So there's an event mapping tab within Manage Related Content Service. So the page I showed you guys was the My System profile. So pull that up and then associate it to the event I just created. And I want it after post build. So after it's processed, that's where I want to kick off that code. So save it. Again, it's a post process I need. So now I'm going to go to the page and pull it up. So again, I haven't touched the page component. It's more around configuration and bolt-on objects. So the My System profile page. Once that pulls up, based on the configuration, I get that message from the bolt-on. So this is pretty neat, and I certainly want to address all customizations, but I think it has the potential to reduce a significant number of customizations that we've seen with our customers. Going back to some of the enhancements on Application Designer, as you can see, there's a pretty significant search filters that have been added, whether you're doing a find in or a find definition reference. Very helpful. We also have a pop-up within PeopleCode now. So as you're typing PeopleCode, you will see that there's options where you can select. So this can greatly reduce any errors that developers will be running into as they're coding within PeopleCode. I mentioned the log analyzer. So this is you're able to view your AET trace files and your PeopleCode trace files, merge them, be able to search by rows, number of updated, or how long they ran. So this is again, as for folks, and it's not just for developers, but for anyone that has experience reviewing trace files. No more text editors. This is something that I think will greatly reduce the amount of time that it takes us to review trace files. I want to go through all the new shortcuts that have been released with 8.55 for App Designer. Again, we'll send out this presentation to everyone that's attended. But again, pretty significant shortcuts that can cut the amount of time that it takes to develop. On the PS Admin side, again, the major one is obviously for a DPK and how you roll out environments, but there have been enhancements on PS Admin, being able to refresh the config home now, and encryption of the password when you do a quick configuration is available now. Before, when you do a quick configuration, the passwords are not encrypted, so you have to reconfigure. It just took more time, and now that's available for PeopleSoft administrators. You can also create PIA domains now. You used to be able to manage PIA domains. Now you can create them. Log correlation is another, for PeopleSoft administrators, similar to what we did for developers. The log correlation now has additional fields that Oracle is creating within the WebLogic and the application server logs, so we can be able to correlate them. In the past, the WebLogic, the web server logs, and the application server logs, it was hard to tie together and say what actually happened for that user and so forth. Where now, pretty simple to identify and be able to correlate that information. Last but not least, security impacts. I've touched upon that during the overview. From my perspective, the pretty significant change from a security standpoint is the access and connect ID character restriction. It used to be 8, now it's 32. And this impacted us pretty much on a lot of our clients because they had database security requirements, and that 8 character did not fit that within the requirements. So we always made exceptions to these accounts, which was a security hole, and that Oracle has taken care of that. From the secure configuration initiative that has been started since 8.53, where now Oracle is configuring password controls like the password minimum length, the sign-on PeopleCode, password expression. All that comes configured by default. You can certainly go in and change them, but like account lockout and password minimum length, when you install PeopleSoft, it's already configured. Forgot password functionality, that also no longer provides any feedback if you whether you put a correct user ID or a wrong user ID. The only way you will know is when you receive that email. So this certainly protects for programs or users that will continuously put user IDs within the password functionality until they get a hit. So it would be the email that will be confirming it. And I already talked about the SHA-256 and the 4096 key size support for private keys. And I think that will be it from our side. Russ, over to you.
Great. Thanks, Sarafel and Jan. That was a great job. That was quite a bit of info to cover in an hour, but I think you guys did a great job of highlighting the biggest points. We realized this presentation was going to be packed with info, so we anticipated a lot of questions, and I can see a lot of kind of user-specific questions. So as we mentioned earlier, we have 2 emails set up specifically to answer questions. You can email askjanet@btrgroup.com for more of your functional questions, and ask Sarafel at btrgroup.com for more of the technical questions. If you message them, they'll get right back to you as soon as possible. Or you can also still put in questions in the question box on the control panel here. As Sarafel and Janet both mentioned, 8.55 is a bit of a different animal compared to past releases, and it's a bit more complex. In speaking with customers, we know a lot of organizations upgraded their tools internally, but I think both Janet and Sarafel would agree that you should at least speak with a partner who has experience with 8.55 before attempting this on your own. Whether it's BTRG or someone else, go out there and talk to someone who has some experience with this. As I mentioned, we're more than happy to set up a call with you, and we'll put our technical folks, our functional folks on a call just to answer some of your questions and talk you through what the process should look like, even if you are planning to do it on your own. So we're happy to do that. This bit of uncertainty around the roadmap for the future is a great segue to our next webinar and educational campaign. We're calling it 2016, the year of the assessment. We're seeing a lot of organizations looking at having assessments done to determine their future path around PeopleSoft, whether it be a plan for Pom, identifying components of the cloud to utilize, creating a mobile strategy, or creating a non-disruptive testing strategy. There's a lot of assessments that customers are looking at. So you can go to our website here. It's a bit grainy, but if you go to our homepage under resources, the drop-down is upcoming events. You can register there, and we'll be sending out an email as well in the next couple of weeks. So also, kind of a last thing, we release a lot of info through our BTRG LinkedIn page, so be sure to go follow us there for the most up-to-date information. We're actually randomly selecting one person who follows us in the next week to win an Amazon gift card, so head over there now and just follow us, and you'll get not only a chance to win an Amazon gift card, but a lot of our great information. That's where we publish it first. So final reminder, you can email us those questions to Ask Janet, AskSarafel@btrgroup.com, put them in the question box here. We'll be packaging them all up along with a replay link of this webinar and getting them out to everyone in the next week or so. And until then, you can head to our website. We've put together an info doc around 8.55 highlighting some of the points we've talked to today, so feel free to download that and share that with your colleagues. We'll leave the question box open here for a minute or so, but that concludes our webinar for today. So thank you everyone for attending. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to talking to you again in the future. Thank you.